Hey, it's Jen for Tested here with my favorite things of 2022. Now, this year I didn't do a whole lot of tool acquisition. It was more sort of shop organization and honing in my layout and what things I use all the time. So I thought I'd share a few of the items that are my everyday carries, so to speak, the things that I reach for almost every day. So some of them are not new. They may be new to you, but these are the things that are like tried and true that I'm always going to go back to. The first one is actually the very first power tool that I ever owned. This is called the Craftsman Bolt-On, and it looks like a drill, looks like your standard drill. But what is awesome about this tool is you can remove the head, so you can take off the whole head, and there are a variety of other attachments that fit onto the same tool handle. These are basically all running off of the same motor. So you've got one handle, one battery, and then all these different attachments. This is a mini circular saw. There is a sander attachment, the drill, obviously. There were things like an air compressor. Now, this tool is 10 years old, probably. I got it as a Christmas gift. And at the time, I didn't have the space or the budget to have a whole wood shop. So for a while, this thing was my entire wood shop. It got a ton of use over the years, as you can see. And I don't use all of the tools on a regular basis anymore, simply because I've sized up, I have better options. But the one thing that I still go back to, that I still actually have in my tool bag, is this little mini circular saw. This is a 3 3/8 inch blade. You can see it's got quite a lot of use. I probably need a new blade on it. But I consistently reach for this when I don't want to drag out one of my bigger saws. I have, I think, 7 different kinds of power saws at this point. So the fact that I still reach for this says a lot about this tool. It's small, it's really lightweight. I just keep this one battery charged, and I can throw this in my tool bag and know that I'll be able to cut something kind of rough and quick. You know, it's not very precise. The cuts are not beautiful. You can replace the blade with a similar size blade that's, finer teeth. But mostly I'm using this like if I have to pack a road kit and I know that I need to make some quick cuts in the field. I'm not going to be clamping down a guide, although you could. This is the thing that I always reach for. Craftsman obviously was acquired by Stanley Black & Decker, so the bolt-on system does not exist anymore. Stanley Black & Decker has a new version called the Matrix, and it's basically the same format. You can get the circular saw, drill, driver, jigsaw. I think they even have a router attachment now. It's not going to take the place of your full-size dedicated tools, obviously. You're not going to get as much power with a tiny little battery like this. But for a beginner, someone who's just getting started, this was a fantastic gift. There are also options for mini circular saws that are just dedicated. If you like the idea of this setup, I believe that Milwaukee makes one that's just a cutoff wheel. Makita and also DeWalt, I believe, have a version of a mini circular saw that's sort of handheld in this format. And there's tons of off-brand ones as well. This one's still going, so I haven't replaced it yet, but this is definitely a special one. This is one of my favorite tools. The next thing I'll share are these funny looking clamps. These are corner clamps. I have a couple of different sizes, different brands, and I use them for quick sort of box making. Anytime I need to build any kind of structure with 90 degrees, if you don't have a bench vise or another set of hands, these are really handy. So there's 2 basic kinds that I've used. These little tiny Irwin ones, which you just have to adjust using this screw. You can also bolt them to your work table. So there's little holes here if you wanted to screw this down. I like those for smaller things, but they don't fit large. You can't really hold that much in them. They're good for framing. These are some bigger ones, probably, from Harbor Freight. This is not a branded thing. You can find nicer ones from places like Rockler. But what I like about these ones is they have a little quick release button on the side. So instead of spinning the whole way, you can just set the quick release and quickly adjust. And I'll show you exactly how you would set this up. But basically, you're putting 2 pieces of material in here, and you slowly edge them in until you got that perfect 90. You clamp them down. And then I'll usually put glue and some finish nails in there just to let it set up. if you try to screw into that joint, it can tend to shift your right angle. So I'll glue it, nail it together, wait for that to set, and then I can come back with screws and fully tighten down that joint. Sometimes I'll also use two of them. So if you've got, a box set up with two right angles, once you have those two set up, you can then put them together and make your full square or rectangle. You can see this one I've used for welding. It's not just for woodworking. I keep one in my welding kit and one in my woodworking box. And these two have gotten me through most of the box cabinet type builds that I'm working on. The next thing I want to share with you is a very simple thing. You may have seen these before. Sharpies are pretty much, everybody knows about them. But I recently discovered Pro Sharpies, which are meant for marking on materials that are like dusty or oily or a little bit damp. And they come in a bunch of different sizes. They have this one, which is the main chisel tip. There's also a fine point and a king size, I believe. These are way better, in my opinion, than regular Sharpies, simply because they don't get that weird drying when you write on certain things. Like if you write on a bunch of cardboard or if you're writing on gaffer's tape, eventually I feel like the regular traditional Sharpies will sometimes start to dry out, or you have to try them on another piece of paper to get them to write on your surface. But these as far as I've used them, they never really fade. I've been using this roll of yellow gaff tape for labels, kind of a la Laura Kampf, in my shop. I really like the look of this. It's really bold. It's easy to see what's in the box from high up. So all of my shop storage has gaff tape and Pro Sharpie labels on it. Super useful, very inexpensive, and I probably won't go back to regular Sharpies. The next one of my favorite things is this little device, which doesn't look like a whole lot. It's a thermal label printer. So if you have watched any of my videos on Tested before, you know that I've been working on a lot of laser cut model kits, which I've been selling online. And that involves lots and lots of shipping labels, sometimes hundreds of them at a time. So I was using a regular, laser printer to print those off on regular 8.5 by 11 paper, and then you have to fold it and tape it. But this prints on actual shipping labels. So there's a cartridge, like a little roll inside. It just looks like this. And it doesn't require any ink. Once you buy the machine, this is, I think, under $200. Once you buy the machine and you have your roll of labels, you never have to purchase any supplies ever again. Basically, the paper itself is thermal reactive. So the printer flashes the image onto the paper and it prints. It is just black and white. I don't think they make color thermal printers, but it prints on an already adhesive label, so you can just peel that off, stick it on your box, and you're good to go. It also prints in batches, so I can do 50, 100 labels at once, and they'll all just come out of the machine, one right after the other. This has saved me a ton of money on ink and also a ton of time for creating all of those batch, production scale shipments. This is the ArcScan 2054A, I believe. So the printer's by ArcScan. You can buy pretty much any label paper that will fit for this model, and it connects via a USB port to your computer. There are other kinds of thermal printers that have a Wi-Fi connection or Bluetooth. I didn't really need that functionality, so this one's just hardwired in, and I can print batch labels straight from my laptop. The next favorite thing for this year was a process that I got sort of a deep dive into, which is gold leafing, specifically reverse gilding. So taking a piece of glass or acrylic and applying a set of graphics that are laser cut onto a masking paper. You then remove the mask layer by layer while applying different paints and gold leaf and get these really cool sort of somewhat transparent. You can have different backgrounds that are solid. And I was able to get all sorts of neat effects just using text graphics in Illustrator, scoring the mask material on the laser cutter, and then using kind of order of operations to apply the leaf and color in different layers. I did a whole video about that, which you can find on Tested, but this kind of process, all of the different supplies, this is a process that has been done for hundreds of years. Obviously the technology has evolved somewhat, but you can buy things like water-based size. These are special brushes for applying the leaf. And then of course the gold leaf itself, which is just beautiful little sheets of tissue that look like this. And you can buy this in real gold, as well as silver and copper and all different sorts of metallics. But today you have the option to buy imitation gold leaf, which makes this much more economical craft project to get into without having to buy 24 karat gold leaf. So if you're interested in how this was all done, definitely go check out that video, but I'm super into this process. I think the finished product is pretty neat looking and it's so easy to do. My final favorite thing for this year is actually an art exhibit that I had an opportunity to see twice in San Francisco at the Legion of Honor. Our good friend Sophie Wong was visiting and she told me about this, and I had not heard of this artist before. Her name is Guo Pei. She's a contemporary fashion designer and costume creator from China, and she makes these incredibly elaborate, very artistic sort of sculptural dresses and outfits. I hadn't heard the name before, but you've probably seen her work. She did a lot of the costumes for the 2018 Beijing Olympics. She also made that iconic yellow dress that Rihanna wore to the Met Gala. Her work is very visible in a lot of places. Anyway, she had a show at the Legion of Honor and Sophie and I got to go, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. It was incredible. I went back again because I didn't get enough of it. But this is one of the books from the exhibition, and I actually bought a used copy, but you can see some of the kind of pieces that she creates. They're very sculptural, lots of different use of materials that maybe wouldn't necessarily be thought of in costuming. There's all this elaborate embroidery. The other thing that was really cool about the exhibit is a lot of the pieces would list how long the project took. So you might see a dress like this on display and it would say 10,000 hours. Just thinking about 10,000 hours of beading and embroidering. And Guo Pei has a whole shop full of embroiderers and seamstresses that work on these pieces. If you get a chance to see her work anywhere, I highly recommend it. The Legion of Honor itself is beautiful, but this book goes through a lot of the well-known pieces in her collection, and there are other books you can get, but I really liked the photography in this one. Another thing that was really neat about the museum show was the exhibit itself was set up in the basement gallery of the Legion of Honor, but there were pieces of Guo Pei's interspersed throughout the museum exhibits as part of their permanent collection. So you would see things like a room showcasing a bunch of blue and white china urns, and in that room would be a mannequin wearing something that wasn't necessarily related to that when it was created, but Guo Pei helped to curate her pieces to fit in with the museum's existing collection. So it's really integrated throughout the entire experience, and it was just, it was so inspiring. And this book captures just a little bit of that. Anyway, well, that's all of the favorite things that I had to share for this year. Hopefully you have some ideas for things you'd like to gift to people, different things you might want to try out. Take care, happy holidays, and we'll see you next year.